to another episode of the BrickSide Chat podcast, where we take your questions and turn them into conversations. My name is Evan.
And I'm Paul.
And today we're going to be talking about branding, how to build a brand, where to start when developing your brand, and why having a brand is really strong, and I think it's essential to creating a strong business. But before we start, I want to point out and say that this is a company brand, company-wide, not like a specific brand for a product that you're making. Not that what we're going to talk about wouldn't
apply to a product line, but it's more focused around not a product specifically, but all of the associated branding specifically with the company. I guess it could apply to the branding of a product line in terms of if that product line has a lot of other things associated with it, but we're definitely not talking about the product specifically.
Right. We're talking about everything within the company. We're not. Yeah, you understand. Never mind.
Yeah.
So real quick, just to touch on briefly, what exactly is a brand? I think when you say the word brand and someone's thinking about what they're going to do, the first thing that probably pops into people's mind is logo. That's assuming you have a name of a company already. I think when you're kind of developing a brand, you probably do at that point. But most obvious thing usually is logo. What should I make my logo? What should I do here? Whatever. And I think the second is probably some sort of slogan, potentially with that brand. Essentially, the brand in general really creates a perspective from which people will view your company and how they're going to perceive what you guys do. Hopefully your logo and your slogan and the name of your company have something to do with what you do. Hopefully it's not like, something weird and then it has absolutely nothing to do.
But some of the most iconic company names are things that have nothing to do with.
That's true.
Like, I mean, not talking about a product here, but Kleenex. They're not called Kleenexes. They're called tissue paper. But the word Kleenex doesn't really have to do with anything, and yet it has become such a strong brand name that is just the name of the thing now.
Right.
So.
That is true. So we can probably start with maybe the question of like, why is branding so important when it comes to a business, and why, if you don't have a strong brand associated with your business, does your business, you're missing out on, I think, so much potential when you don't have a true strong brand image associated with your business.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, the most important one is recognizability. Because if you have, once again, we're trying to be product agnostic here, but if you have a product and someone else also has that product, and we'll use our own product as an example. Honestly, besides our quality level, our bricks aren't different from anyone else's bricks in our space. It's all the same product. And if someone is looking at the site and our stores are identical and all our pricing is the same, they're probably going to go with whichever name they recognize. And obviously there are other ways to make your brand more distinct. You can be super cheap, right? But that goes more into the product. But if your brand is known, it's a trusted name, then a customer might be more willing to pick you over someone else.
Absolutely. The branding for sure establishes yourself within your industry and helps to differentiate you from others when things might be incredibly similar, like exact same product, for example. It also helps generally to convey your purpose as to what the point of what your company does to other people, to potential customers and whatever. And again, this is with your logo and your slogan, and we'll talk about some more elements of branding and how to kind of build out a brand. But it also helps to increase company awareness. So this could potentially attract new customers. So let's say someone goes to, we'll say BrickLink, because that's what we do, and they have a wanted list and it's exactly identical between two stores, price, quantity, everything, shipping time, whatever. And they look at it and they see one that appears to have, like they can do research in the back end slightly, and they can see like, hey, we have a YouTube channel, and like they can see where it comes from, and they can see the process and they understand it. And, that's part of the brand that we've built and that they can associate with us versus some other store, Bob's Bricks, which I'm sure is a great store and all, but they just don't have that.
By the way,
branding.
we pulled that name out of nowhere. So if there's a Bob's Bricks,
right,
completely coincidental.
I'm sure there is one. But yeah, like it could be a phenomenal store and stuff, but if it doesn't have that branding behind it that people see, and then all of a sudden they can like appreciate, that might be what gets us that sale versus them going with Bob's Bricks.
And another very, very important thing about that is, let's say there's someone new to Lego or new to BrickLink, and they have heard of Just a Brick in the Bucket. Maybe they listened to an episode of this podcast, or maybe a video of ours somehow just ended up in their recommended, even though that's not what led them to Lego. And they're just scrolling through, and even if we are slightly more expensive than the competition, and they see that name and they remember, like, oh, I saw those guys and they seemed like really great, awesome, amazing, fantastic people, then maybe they're going to have a little bit more brand familiarity and make that choice, even though potentially, not trying to hurt ourselves here, there might be a better option. So
yeah, part of branding is creating an image for you and kind of marketing yourself a little bit. And something else is not only just with new customers, but also with existing customers. They might order from you, and 6 months later they've kind of forgotten about you, but once they see your name again, they're going to remember. And we'll talk about the customer experience in a minute when it comes to your brand, but how that kind of helps as well to build up what you can create for someone so that they can remember you.
I think one of the other most important things, maybe even the most important thing, once you've gotten past the point of a brand new customer, is that having a brand certifies your authenticity. Because this is maybe touching a bit on product, but if you have something that maybe isn't a Lego piece, or even is a Lego piece, because we hold ourselves to a very high quality level in our pieces. And so when you shop at Just a Brick in the Bucket, if we do make a mistake, you know that we're going to do our best to fix it, because customer service is one of the key points of our brand, is that we try our best to have really good customer service. And so because of that, if you see that a order has the Just a Brick in the Bucket, stamp on the package, you know that you are also purchasing essentially good customer service. I'm not trying to say a warranty or anything. I'm just saying, if you reach out to us, part of the money that you're spending is also guaranteeing access to the customer service associated with that brand versus, sorry again, Bob's Bricks, which might not have the best customer service. If you purchase with that brand, you might be losing some of that. So someone might be more willing to spend more money because it has that certified Just a Brick in the Bucket name on it.
Absolutely. And once you've built up enough of that kind of reputation and stuff as well, you can start to do a few things that can increase your business without hurting, or sorry, that can maybe increase, we'll say, your prices or something. I'll just go with prices. That may not hurt your business. Whereas if you're really small, let's say you wanted to sell something for $1 and that was the going rate. You can sell it for $1 and everything, and that's obviously fine when you start out. But if you become really, well known and stuff, you may be able to sell it now for $1.10 or something, and it kind of allows you to do that because people are still going to come buy from you because you have a reputation now of being a good brand. It's kind of that same concept with like Starbucks versus a local coffee shop, for example. Starbucks, you can go get a coffee for like, I don't know, I think it's like $3 or something if it's just plain coffee. And it's like $3 for a coffee. Or you can go to your local, restaurant or local coffee shop or something, and maybe get a coffee for $1.50. But that local restaurant or whatever that is doesn't have that brand name tied with it. So obviously Starbucks can charge significantly more and people will still go. So there's also that with it as well. If you build a big enough brand, you're able to leverage that brand name and stuff to increase prices, to do a few things that would normally be frowned upon, and potentially could slow down and lessen your business. Another thing with branding is specifically, and it depends on how big of a company I suppose you are, but specifically employees working with you. So let's say, for example, you work at we'll go coffee shop again, a local little coffee shop. You may be proud to work there and stuff. But when you say to like friends and family who maybe we'll say live out of state, for example, you might say, hey, I work at a little coffee shop. You may not say the name of it and stuff. Versus if you have friends and family who live out of state, you're going to be able to say, oh, I work at Starbucks, because everyone knows what that is. And again, we're going with this weird Starbucks to local coffee shop analogy here, but if you build a big enough brand, your employees can be really proud of where they work. And instead of saying for like, hey, I work for this small little startup company that sells Lego pieces, you can say, hey, I work for Just a Brick in the Bucket. And if people know that name, it also builds up the pride in which employees work for, or employees are able to like express when they work for you as well.
Totally. Another thing, this is more about the gives certified authority, is if you get to the point or in your industry you already have to work with suppliers, or you have cooperative relationships with other, I guess, competitors, right? Competitors, or whatever the term is, right? A competitor that you also have some degree of a friendly or mutually beneficial relationship with, which we definitely do with a couple stores out there. And if we did not have the branding of Just a Brick in the Bucket, a lot of opportunities would not have come along to us.
100%,
we have very profitable, very profitable relationships with some other, suppliers and stores, which give us a unique competitive edge, and we would not be able to have access to those resources and those, methods of supply if we did not have the YouTube channel and people did not feel that reaching out to us had a degree of pre-established trust. Because if we screw something up and we hurt another company or a cooperator or a supplier, we have branding that we need to keep intact. And so hurting someone like that, the company can make a safe bet that we're not going to run away with their money, because to us, if a story like that came out, it would be very damaging. So there's already a degree of insurance there. And there's also the fact that hopefully, I would like to think we look like nice people, and we have some degree of trust there in running a business honestly. And that definitely has also been one of the factors that people have, our cooperators have said is something that has, drawn them to working with us before.
Totally. And another thing is, even with customers, kind of heading back to that slightly, with a customer where they have the ability to look, and we keep mentioning the YouTube channel, and that's been a big part of our brand and the ability to market and stuff. But when a customer goes and looks for what we are, they can see us. It's a lot harder for us to now, like, let's say we shipped them the wrong piece or something and they email us. It's really hard potentially, if we wanted to like hide behind this curtain, because we're not behind this curtain anymore. And like there's a visual with like who we are as part of this brand. And if someone is unhappy with stuff, it is our priority already, but like now it's an extra priority to really fix that problem, because we have a visual association with the brand and stuff as well.
We have our own personal brand. I don't think we're going to get into personal brand very much here, but that would be your brand as you as a person. You as a business owner need to be aware that once you rank up far enough, the actions of your company definitely have an impact on you outside of the company, as much as you might wish that not to be the case. Especially with social media and everything now. If you do something regrettable with your company, that's going to reflect very poorly on you. And so we have an added incentive to try and make sure that all customers are as happy as can be, and that we're kind to viewers, because we do get we do occasionally get emails or comments which we might want to type something, not very professional to, and we don't, and we try to, think carefully, because one, we want to be nice, but also we need to protect the brand of being this family-friendly, very polite, and very kind organization.
Exactly. So, yeah, and that's our responsibility as well, versus just
the company.
Just us saying the company should handle that. In a way, I mean, we are the company if we really want to like break it down a little bit. So that's I think why you kind of need a strong brand. There's a lot of reasons. If you have a brand that's constantly flipping and flopping and changing all these different things, you're going to be a little lacking when it comes to creating that image that you want people to recognize, because it'll be hard to follow. So there's a few things I think in terms of the elements of branding, and this is almost how to build a brand. This is a mixture of what we've been able to research as well as what we've done in the past when it comes to like establishing a set of rules as to what we do when we post a video or when we ship an order, or certain things like that to establish a brand. So the first thing when it comes to the elements of branding is definitely like the brand identity with the visual look of it. So this includes, obviously, you want to pick a logo, which is usually difficult. There's a lot of things online where it's like a free logo maker and stuff, but I would really urge you to kind of think about what logo or shape or whatever you're doing, what it really represents for you as a brand versus...
That just looks cool.
It looks cool, exactly. Like, it can look cool and stuff, but this potentially, who knows? Obviously, if it's your first one for the brand, you're probably not going to stick with it forever, but this should represent... When someone sees this, they should think of you and what you do, not just like, oh, that's cool.
And don't make a name as long as ours.
Yeah, that's another thing that comes with the logo, is obviously picking a title or a name of the company or the brand. Just a Brick in the Bucket is a long name, really long name. I would definitely not recommend going that long. We've obviously made this mistake. We're kind of stuck in it now for at least the time being, unless we do something different. But a name change is hard for sure. That's a big swap there. So I would say pick a name wisely. Just a Brick in the Bucket is too long. On BrickLink, we should have gotten the hint when it fills out completely the characters for the name of the store that you can put in there. But yeah, pick a name if you can. Obviously, logo goes with the name, and then the typography that you're going to use. So when we brand anything with videos, we have a special font that we use, as well as colors, and then other design elements of your company as well. So really the visual look of your company, you kind of want to be consistent if you can, and you want to have, when you see something, it makes sense that it is associated with, for example, Just a Brick in the Bucket, versus it's just some random font that says Where Any Brick is Just
Comic
a Click
Sans.
Away. Comic Sans. Yeah, don't use that. Whatever, though, just you want to try to pick stuff. And, maybe you're not the most creative person out there, but you really want to get something good. Fiverr's great. It's a resource for a lot of, people who are out there who are creatives, who want to create brand things and stuff, and you can pay just a little bit of money to get a variety of things returned to you, and then you can pick and choose and work with those creators out there and change and have revisions done and stuff, and it's relatively affordable. Obviously, the people on Fiverr as well have kind of built a brand for themselves. If they're really, really good, they're going to cost more and stuff versus those who are a little just starting out and stuff. But
yeah,
same concept. So Fiverr is a great place to check out that kind of stuff, which will help you get that visual look for your brand. The last thing I want to talk about is kind of the colors. I know I mentioned colors, but like, if you're consistent with your colors, and a hard thing, and we're not great with this, we have our blue and our red that we kind of go with. Other than that, that's all we have. But technically, you can pick a palette of colors that are visually look nice together. And if you're consistent with those colors in terms of everything you do, it'll feel more cohesive in terms of a brand.
The other visual things is visual also goes well beyond like a logo, because we do kind of have, I guess, a feel. Something that we are told a lot is, our production quality, which, I mean, we kind of have an edge in that, because of Evan's film background. But there is, when you watch Just a Brick in the Bucket video versus, someone shooting portrait mode with their phone, you kind of know it adds an air of legitimacy. And so when curating that, when curating your brand, you also need to decide what all of the various visual aspects of your entire brand and your entire company are going to be, because you can totally run a portrait mode vlogging style. I'm obviously talking about a YouTube channel here, but you could run ads like that. Those are very popular now. And you can totally get a sale. But if your audience is used to these very cinematic things and then suddenly you switch to that, might not go over the best. So just, be aware when formulating your brand and your visual style is if you sell yourself as this very professional, entity, and then you jump to something else, you might lose some flack there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about towards the end of this is the evolution of your brand, because it's not like once you pick it today, you have to stick with it for the next 20 years. But you definitely want to find some consistency, I think, versus just saying, oh, let's do this and this and this and hopping around. And then people lose that concept of when they see something, it feels like it's just a brick in the bucket. Like if you watch an ad for like Apple, like their holiday ads, it's very cinematic and stuff. And you may not know it's an Apple ad, but you have that concept that like this could be, and then you see the Apple logo at the end and you're like, okay, it was an Apple ad or whatever that ad is. There's a lot of things like that. You see a car commercial and you're not sure if it's a car commercial yet, but it feels like a car commercial. Like things like that. If you're able to do that, that's good because it creates almost this emotional connection and this emotional like feeling, not like sad or happy or whatever, but like this thing you associate with this visual look and the sound and the colors and all that kind of stuff to a certain brand or to a certain product or something like that. Jumping from the visual look of your brand identity, there's also kind of the culture of your brand and the brand identity that you're building. There's obviously your company culture in terms of the workplace and how all the employees get together and all that stuff, but there's also the culture behind your brand identity, which are things that you want to establish early on. And again, you want to try to stick to them if you can. So this could be, potential political views of the company, what the company as a collective kind of does or doesn't do when it comes to different things like that, your view on customers, how important they maybe are, what your limits are in terms of how far you'll go for a customer, kind of that corporate versus like cool in terms of the way you might want to run your workplace.
Whether you want to be Wendy's or I guess what's like the most corporate
in terms of like Twitter or something where they tweet like they get wars.
where Wendy's just starts fights with everyone.
Yeah. So like you want to pick a lot of those different things, or hopefully early on, and obviously that's something that will continue to adapt, I think, as well as you determine what you maybe want to share or not. But again, being consistent with that, I think, is important, and it's really important to think about. Obviously there's all the personal beliefs. So whatever you believe personally might, that might contradict with what a lot of your customers potentially might believe. So there's a little bit of balance, and you have to determine whether or not you want to share all your personal beliefs and share that with your company, or if you want your company to be a little more neutral, or whatever, because obviously, it's really difficult to be neutral, but also like if you go one of the two directions, then there's going to be people out there who disagree and you could potentially be losing customers and whatever.
And it's really hard to take things back too. I don't want to start a whole cancel culture thing, so I'm not going to talk about that very much. But it's just, now that things are on the internet forever, if you trip up and maybe you say something or you do something that isn't going to age very well, once you share your personal beliefs, you can never unshare your personal beliefs. And so that's one of the reasons why we try to stay, very neutral. But as you're building your company, having very aggressive political beliefs in either direction can also sometimes be an asset for some companies who have built their brand on, being whatever it is that they believe. And that should be a deliberate decision rather than something where you just get irritated at a conference and then say something. You should, at least in my opinion, if you're going to express a political belief in regards to your company, you should think about it and determine that this is something that is going to be a positive attribute for the company, or something that I believe so deeply that I have to do it.
Exactly.
But I don't think that should always be an impulse decision where someone says something you don't like and then you immediately respond. Instead, it should be this is our statement of belief on this.
Yeah. I think regardless of the direction you go and stuff, whether you choose to be neutral or not, you need to make sure that your company is very professional about releasing whatever you're doing. because definitely if you go out there and you go crazy with whatever you want to say, it's out there now.
Yeah. And if you misspoke, like if you say something like legitimately misspoke and you say something that maybe came across as a little bit more extreme than you actually believe, and then you try and correct it later, people might believe that you're just trying to undo, that you're lying now. So that's why I think it's a little bit better to carefully word, and think about your beliefs before you express them.
Right. And obviously a lot of things, like little things, don't matter in terms of what you believe. Yeah. Like we've gone so many times back and forth on like, someone asks us a question like, oh, do you want to do this? And then we're like, oh no, we don't want to. And then like 2 weeks later, we're like, well, we're thinking about it. Like it really depends what you're doing. In the BrickLink Lego community, there's always that division of like, consolidate, don't consolidate. That's been a division line for sure. But like at the end, we've been back and forth on that too. And there's a lot of, I don't think that necessarily is going to cause any issues when it comes to stuff versus like a political type thing where it could cause a potential big thing. We've talked always about like, hey, we're not doing free shipping. And then next week we're like, well, we're going to try free shipping. So, that's not really building your brand. However, obviously if someone associates you with a store that does do free shipping over $60 and you took that away from them, technically, I guess that's a little bit associated with the brand and that could be sad from their perspective. But yeah, overall, you just want to be careful with what you announce and how you announce it. But it is good to have a policy on that for sure. The next thing is kind of brand messaging. This is kind of how you want to communicate to your audience when you're building your brand. So, kind of what your positioning are on certain things, how you want your personality to come across maybe, what are your company values? How are you going to communicate that to your audience or your customers? And obviously this is a variety of different ways you could communicate it. Of course, you could, if you have a YouTube channel or something that's like very simple, like throw it out there, kind of like we do. Or of course, it could be in just the way you word your message on the little thank you notes that you put in every package. That's all kind of a message that your brand is pushing across. I guess a little message that we have that little card that goes in our package and stuff. Plus, we have a drive-through message that is like hey, thanks for ordering from us. Your order is on its way, and here's your tracking number. That's all kind of messaging in terms of you're actually reaching out to your customers directly. We also, same thing, have I don't want to say standardized, like customer service type email, but we have a pretty solid, like, okay, if they reach out to us and they're missing a piece, this is what we do. Here's your tracking number for the new piece. We're so sorry. It's on its way today. Like, it's very basic, and it's, again, a standardized message, essentially, that we've kind of put together to determine what based on what we determine we think is a good message to give to that customer for that.
Part of brand messaging is also determining what avenues you want to push your brand. Because branding, obviously, if a customer has already bought from you in customer service and all that, you do communicate your brand a lot there because it represents you. But do you want to pay for advertisements? Are you heavy on social media? Where do you represent yourself, and what messaging avenues do you take as well? And that plays into marketing too, because branding and marketing, they have some overlap, but it's not exactly the same thing. So
yeah, and kind of jumping off of that concept of like the advertising, and like, are you going to go do it on social media and stuff? You want to make sure that your target audience is aimed correctly. When you're building this brand, obviously we sell Lego pieces, and hopefully like, maybe sets and stuff as we expand. But as we sell all that, we need to look at who our audience is. Being on BrickLink, I guess if you take a step back and you just look at it from the perspective of we sell Lego, you probably have the first thought process of like, oh, the majority of this is going to like kids/teenagers or maybe parents who are buying for their kids.
And it's complete sets.
Right, for sure. Yeah, definitely. No, the concept of selling pieces is definitely not the first thought process when you say, oh, we sell Lego. So that you need to take that image and then you narrow it down and be like, okay, well, actually, if we look at our target audience, we're not selling complete sets for the most part. we're actually really not selling to kids. Some parents buy stuff for kids,
but it's very low.
But it's minimal. And there's some teenagers in there, but actually the majority of our audience is like 35 to 60, somewhere in there. You know, there's obviously outliers in both directions, but the audience we're really going for are the people who are building a mock of some sort, or they're trying to complete a set that maybe they had from their childhood. And if we didn't quite understand that that was our audience, and obviously we have this weird thing where we're selling pieces, but we're also creating video content on YouTube or podcasts or whatever for people who are trying to sell. So we have kind of a couple separate avenues in which we're like actually aiming at people. But for the most part, the age ranges overlap very similarly versus those who are trying to sell and then those who are actually buying from us. But for example, if we were aiming, let's say we were doing Instagram ads or something at kids, like we'll say 13 to 15 or something, all of a sudden we're probably, if we didn't truly understand who our audience was, probably wasting a lot of money, because once they get to the BrickLink website or something, it now becomes this whole thing of like, whoa, we have 22,000 lots and like however many pieces, and like they're scrolling through pages. Like it just doesn't, it's not user friendly. It doesn't make sense anymore. We don't have like Lego.com where you just go and you see the cool sets you want to buy and it are super easy. So that would totally be the wrong audience and the wrong market to push towards, versus we know, okay, 35 to 60 or whatever it is, that's who we want to push to. And the ad that we're going to curate and make for them would be different than this really cool, colorful, exciting little thing to post on Instagram. And instead it's going to be on Facebook or something, because that's an older type social media, and it's going to be a little more maybe professional or standardized in terms of like straightforward content. So definitely you want to understand who your audience is, who you're selling to, and it's critical that you understand who you're selling to if you're going to try to market to them as well. Not to say you can't expand out of that market, of course. That would be the goal, would be to get more people buying from you. But you have to understand the limits at which some people just will not buy from you.
Yeah.
The next thing kind of on this list is brand voice, and this really goes very, very similar to what we just said, kind of in that same field. This is the tone in which you're sharing things, the personality, the style of communication. Again, if you're marketing towards younger people, hopefully your tone and style would be different than if you're marketing towards older people and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the things that really a lot of our marketing, I mean, we don't run ad campaigns, partially because BrickLink is not a closed platform. It would be like running an ad for an eBay store, right? We would be basically paying to advertise other people's stores.
Yeah.
So that's that's the reason why we don't run ads. But if we did, the best kind of voice that we would probably want is honestly something kind of technical, because we deal with a lot of people here who are probably looking for a one-stop, they want to find all of their pieces, and they have a complex list and they're willing to learn how to operate BrickLink. Trying to get someone who isn't on BrickLink onto BrickLink is probably very difficult. But if we wanted to advertise to people who are already there, we have the YouTube channel, and there's a very high overlap between sellers and buyers. So by implementing, buying related content into our selling related content, by the way, go buy from Just a Brick in the Bucket, that would be kind of a voice that we would want to go with, rather than something where it's like this, fake happy thing with hipster music playing in the background, on a Etsy ad or something like that.
Right. And again, there's markets for that, but you just have to make sure you're fitting it in the right place.
Yeah.
So something we talked about in terms of like importance of branding and a big element of it was kind of your position, and the brand and how you kind of fit in a market. And you wanted to make sure that you create a brand that differentiates you from the market. That's incredibly important if you're trying to develop a brand. So, we, as you had mentioned, compared to the sellers that we sell alongside on BrickLink, essentially, we do, for the most part, at the end of the day, the same thing. We ship out individual pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The pieces should all be Lego brand, whether it's from us or someone else, in all honesty. Occasionally things slip by in multiple stores, whatever. But at the end of the day, we had to determine what makes us stand out a little bit differently from those who are also selling on BrickLink. And one of the things we kind of went with was, I guess we actually have like a list. So we really, really, and we talked about this a few episodes ago, try to go above and beyond when it comes to customer service. So if something is incorrect with the order, we want to get that fixed as quickly as possible and take one extra step.
I guess customer loyalty is a revenue generator for us. One of the signature hallmarks of our brand, because, I mean, don't get me wrong, you could probably run a very successful BrickLink store which survives on mass volume. I know people do.
Yeah, you can.
You run an all new store with these huge quantities, ordering pallets from Lego, or elsewhere, and you then basically get by purely on the absolute quantity of your sales volume. Our brand and our revenue strategy is more focused around building individual relationships with customers so that they will intentionally come back to us rather than casting a very wide net.
Right.
We try to basically wait for people to come find us either through the YouTube channel or through the wanted list, and we do that by having a wide variety of parts. But for us, the real branding and the real marketing begins once a customer has made their initial purchase.
Yeah.
Because then we want to try and keep them within our system.
Right. But part of the way we also try to, since you're using this fishing analogy, kind of lure them in is we offer free shipping. If you hit a certain dollar amount, not a ton of people do that. Well, I don't know, actually.
We consolidate.
Yeah. It's easy for people to buy from our store because we don't have 12 things listed of the same piece. We have a relatively easy shipping method thing where it's like you can buy from us and it's either going to cost you $5.95 or it's going to cost you $0. It's not like, I mean, unless it's international, but that's different. If you're US, $5.95 or $0. There's not like all these like, oh, it only weighs 2 ounces. It's going to cost $5. Okay, now it weighs 13 ounces. It's going to cost, like, there's no weird tiers like that. The only fee we have, which I actually think is like something that makes our store even more accessible, is a small order fee. If you have an order that is too small, then we just charge you a fee. That's the only fee we tack on top of shipping, and that's only if it's too small. And I think, again, that's an accessibility thing because some stores set a limit of like, you have to spend $5. We don't do that. We just charge a small fee if you don't spend enough money.
And a lot of people pay the fee.
A lot of people are willing to pay that because I bet you that they really only want this one piece, and so many other stores that have this piece have an actual limit that do not allow you to check out. So they're willing to pay the fee at our store because it's easy, and they, for whatever reason, don't want the additional parts to hit their, say, $5 minimum fee or something. So we have
something else is our loyalty program. I mean, that's a little bit much.
That's a stretch.
But, we offer successive coupons on purchases. Sometimes it takes a little bit for us to get around to it, but ideally, everyone who purchases from us gets a coupon, and that coupon scales with the amount of your, well, not like if you spend $300, we'll then give you a larger coupon, but like if we give you a coupon and then you come and spend $300, you'll get a larger percent off of that. So that, one, encourages people to come back, and two, it encourages them to spend more.
Exactly. And so does that free shipping margin at which they hit free shipping.
The business cards too.
Yeah.
They go in every order. A lot of stores don't do that, and a lot of stores that do have business cards, it's a piece of, I mean, it's not a piece of paper, it's a business card, but it doesn't have the nice rounded corners, and we put a lot of time. We spend
the extra money to make the card nicer. And we've talked about this, and I don't remember if we talked about it on the podcast. You and I for sure have talked about it we spend a little more to make it a little bit nicer for the customer. We're not sure 100% on how much of a return, us spending the extra money for the rounded corners on the business card is and stuff, but we do feel that it creates, and we'll get there in just a second, a better brand experience for the customer.
Yes. This is becoming ever more popular. I know I keep referencing social media, but like the instantaneousness of information really has had a like phenomenal shift on the way that that products are marketed, because it used to be you buy this brand because it's what your dad bought, or it's because that is the only store within a 15-minute walk, right? And now so many companies are focusing less on the product, because the truth is I could get, for most things, the same product basically anywhere for much cheaper if I'm willing to flex a little bit on specifically what I desire. Because I could buy Go Bricks, which are very similar to Lego, right? They're non-branded, generic. I think they are from China, just generic building blocks. They have almost every part and almost every color, near perfect color accuracy, I might add.
Yeah, which makes our job harder.
Yes. And I don't want to necessarily... I actually, no, I'll admit it. They are a decent quality product. They're not as good quality as Lego, but if Lego didn't exist, I would say they would probably be a moderately successful, producer of these kinds of pieces.
Right.
And the reason why people buy Lego is, one, Go Brick doesn't make sets. Two, you have this brand and this experience associated with it. Lego comes in a nice box.
Right.
It has nice instructions. The Lego website looks nice. The Go Brick website I've been on a couple of times. It's not awful, but once again, it's not fantastic, right? There's this experience of I'm getting a box. I feel like this company is thanking me, even though I know deep down, I mean, I think Lego probably does care a little bit about me as a customer, but deep down they're trying to make money. But it creates this experience, and I'm buying an experience, and that's becoming a big thing. A lot of the reason, and you can definitely vouch for this, people buy Apple products, is buying and owning an Apple product is an experience. Because if you just wanted to call people, or you wanted the fastest thing possible, I'm sure that you could find a phone Linux distro that was hyper fit specifically for your needs, but it would be a pain to run and you'd have to do all this tech support, right?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be easy to use. Same thing with a laptop, right? If I wanted to build something specifically to run BrickStore, I'm sure I could find something way better than Windows for it. But that's not why I run Windows, and that's not why Evan runs Mac. It's because it's an experience and it kind of just works. And as a brand, that's something that we really try to focus on, is having the just a brick in the bucket experience, where from the moment you make that purchase, even before you make that purchase, the first impression all the way through your next order is a continuous experience. If you have a problem, we want you to feel like you're reaching out and you're being treated special, because you are, to a degree. I mean, we do get a lot of, people who email us, but we remember a lot of customer service emails, and we try to personalize it a little bit. We talked about this on customer service, but one of the big things for me that really irritates me about some customer service is when they fail to restate the problem. It's just, oh, thank you for reaching out to us about the problem with your order. That is how I begin my emails. But then I try to say, I'm sorry that you're missing the wheel to your set, because I could just paste in the part number, and I do after that. But adding that makes it feel like a human wrote this, who understands the problem.
Right.
And I think that's a key part of your brand, is creating this, you're selling a reason.
Making it feel like you're talking to a person versus just this random corporation or company or robot or something.
Especially when your products are all the same. If your product is the same as everyone else's, you're really not selling the product. Really, you're selling ease of access and experience.
I 100% agree, and we've talked about this when it comes to even just our boxes. When from the moment you see the box arrive at the door, you know what it is. You don't just see a box that is a plain brown box or a bubble mailer that's all crumpled and stuff. You see something that like says just a brick in the bucket. You know what that is, and you get that concept of being excited about this thing that you're going to open up, and you know what's in there. And when you open it up, we're consistent with the way we package it. The label's always in the same spot. When you open the box, the card is always on top that has our logo. You see that. You pull the paper out if there's packing paper, and then you see the pieces underneath. It's not just thrown in there, but it's packed in there like neatly. Like there's all this stuff where, I feel like we did talk about it maybe with customer service or something. There's a percent of people who really don't care.
We did. Actually, I don't think it was customer
it was
service,
something.
but it was an episode.
Yeah. Maybe it was business partners or something. I don't know, but there's a percent of people that don't care about that. But then there's a percent of people that appreciate that and they remember that. And those are the people who you're aiming to get back.
What we really want is, and I don't think maybe one individual. This might be one person who orders from us frequently enough. However, their orders are always bubble mailer sized, unfortunately. PA.
Oh, yes, I know who you're talking about.
We want it to be where the box arrives, you hear the doorbell ring or whatever, mailbox, whatever, and you go out and you see the package and you're immediately excited, because it's not like when you get an Amazon package, you're like, oh, what of the 5 subscribe and save cleaning items is this?
Is this paper towels or sponges today?
Yeah, and maybe you did order something interesting, but you don't necessarily feel thrilled when the Amazon package shows up, because it could be anything. But when it's just,
I don't know, I get real excited for those HDMI cables.
By the way, we need to talk about your HDMI cables.
Oh no.
Yeah, I tried fixing the TV. Anyway, so back on topic here. The idea is when you see that package and you see the slightly incorrectly stamped, just a brick in the bucket package that I have stamped.
That's
you're
character.
Like, oh, it's here. Right.
And we're fantasizing this a little bit, but yeah.
In our ideal world, that is the experience we're trying to create. It's like when you were a little kid, at least for me, and I ordered when the new Pokemon game came out, I was like, GameStop.com or go to GameStop in person, get that like now. And I was so thrilled because I was like, oh, it's here. Mm-hmm. Right. Because, it'd have the little GameStop logo and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
It's that brand. You see something that brings you joy because you know what is tied to that.
Correct.
And that's why the logo on the box, at least for us, I think adds so much to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a really simple little change. It does take time and stuff. We've talked about, like, is this worth the time, whatever. But it is creating that brand and that image and that experience and consistency when the box, you get a different size box. It doesn't matter. There's still a stamp on it.
You do bring up an interesting point, because you might have noticed my opinion has shifted a little bit on this in terms of my enthusiasm for it. I've never been opposed to having nice packaging, but I've always said, well, it might cost money. Evan used to do almost all of the packing. Over the last 3 months or so, he's been in the store a lot. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be mean to Evan, but occasionally it's kind of switched from where he's out for hours to sometimes where he's out for a day, but then it's just like 1 day, right? Or 2 days instead of out for half the day. And so I've taken over some more fulfillment and packing and verification than I would have normally. And since then, now that I've gotten into the flow and I'm able to do it way faster and the tape machine, I dislike it less, because I used to always complain that, all of this branding and stuff takes so much time and costs so much money. But once you figure out the standard operating procedure, calling back to last week, or last month.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
You tried.
I tried. It really doesn't cost that much, and it does then have a big benefit. So when you are thinking about your branding, and you're sitting down and you're like, I really want to do this, but it's going to cost a lot, because taking the extra care, I don't know, maybe you want to write a like really fancy hand-signed note every time saying thank you for your order or whatever. If you practice that thank you for your order for an hour and you learn how to do all the little flourishes and stuff, and then you can just, it's not actually going to cost you that much. And I know if I received and I looked at it and you can tell it's really written with a pen, that honestly, because there's a headphone company that I bought from before, and they sign every package and it looks like real ink. I think it is real ink. That did motivate me to buy another headphone from them. It's not the ones I'm wearing now, but that kind of brand connection, when you're considering how much time is this going to take, think about it in terms of when you get fast.
Right. Absolutely. And something that comes with that too is the reputation that you can eventually build. If you get someone in off the branding and the concept of like an experience and everything, they now, or I guess you have a reputation that they see, because they've ordered from you and it's great and stuff. I know that was a lot. And we really hung on the brand experience.
It's because for these episodes, as we get into more specific topics, we're having to do research and talk about things that we have some personal experience with, but it's not something that we sit down and have had meetings over. But experience is such a crucial part of our brand that we're able to talk way more about it. Because it's something Evan and I are both passionate about, and it's something that we consciously think of and talk about a lot. So
yeah. And that was a lot, but like all those things, you know, you may have to rewind a half an hour or something, but if you're trying to build your brand and stuff, those are all, I think, critical things when it comes to trying to build a brand and stick with that brand so that for the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however long you really stick with this, people are able to recognize you, and you're able to also be able to represent yourself because you have something that's written down that you understand versus like you just on the fly making decisions for your brand. And obviously like we did that and stuff as well for a little while. But you want to make sure that, you know, with that reputation you build, you have kind of a perception of your brand to, you know, maybe potential shareholders, or other customers and stuff to really make sure that the quality of your product and your service and customer service, you know, everything is really out there and it's up there.
Yeah, because not that, well, this is going to be a bad example, because this is probably like the one situation where it wouldn't help getting a loan. A bank probably cares way more about your balance sheet than your brand. But for a lot of other things,
like an investor.
Yes, for an investor who is maybe willing to take on a little bit more risk, if you can show them, hey, people buy from me over and over again. Hey, I have this brand. Hey, I need money, right? So maybe you're trying to say, hey, I'm trying to save this brand, but here are the reasons why, you know, I've been successful in the past. That might help you to secure, I'm really trying to avoid saying social credit here, but you know, it might help. I mean, basically, you know, your credit within the industry and with other people, because
I think it's a reputation still. You can still use the word reputation.
Yeah. It's really how much someone feels that they can trust that you're going to come through at the end of the day with your brand, because you have this big thing behind you that's sponsoring you.
Right. It's a quality check mark or like a guarantee essentially with you, that proves or shows that what you're going to make right, whatever the intended thing was, whether something went wrong or whether you're just making it right because that is your person ordered something and you're making it as you do.
And I do want to touch on something a little bit more negative here real quick. Much like a financial credit score, if you mess up your brand, it can be really hard to recover from. I don't know if we have recovering. We do have evolving that we were going to talk about. And this recovering from a brand disaster might be a whole nother episode, because I don't really feel comfortable going super deep into it. We'd have to really look
at that, yeah.
But just, I mean, do be aware that there are some companies that messed up years ago and are now fantastic companies who still are struggling to get over, you know, maybe one bad CEO who made some awful decisions. So be really careful. This goes as you grow for employees too, is hire people who are brand ambassadors. Because if an employee, like there was that video of the UPS, or maybe it was FedEx, there was a video leaked of like some UPS and FedEx dudes who were just throwing fragile packages into the back of a truck like full force. I'm sure that's not a common thing.
Right.
But it went all over the internet. This was like back in high school or something. And I bet that hurt their shares. You know?
No, I'm sure.
And
because people see that and all of a sudden now they have distrust for this company based on one employee who screwed something up. And obviously as you grow, that's almost, you know, you can't avoid that. It's going to happen. But
if you're careful and you get people who are genuinely enthusiastic about the brand. Personal experience, I went to apply at a hospital, Hoag Hospital. I didn't get the job. This was years ago. But like almost the entire interview, I wasn't going for a medical position. It was like working in the back office doing, I think it was basically just like sorting stuff into clean and not clean pile. But almost all the questions were about like, we work in a healthcare thing and we have a brand of helping people. that is like what we are about. So they interviewed me a lot about my time in Boy Scouts and helping people. And they spent like so much time fixating on whether or not I was fundamentally a charitable person, basically. I really shouldn't have started with I didn't get the job, but when you're hiring, I think that is something that when you're first doing interviews and stuff that you might look over is like, is this person, this is going to be a bit extreme, but is this person a walking version of my company? You'll never find someone like that.
Right.
But if you pride yourself on being the kind of company who helps, if you visualize your company as the kind of person who stops and helps an old lady load her car, even though they're not going to make any money off of it, then that should be a question that you're asking your hirants, because your potential hires, because they're going to be the ones who are going to be videotaped by some random person in a parking lot one day.
Throwing your package in the back of their truck.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. And actually, I don't remember if we talked about it here, but no, we did. The employees being prideful in where they work is that similar concept. If you're able to build a place where they're prideful and stuff, they're so much less likely to do anything that's, if you can build that culture and everything where they want to work there and they're happy,
Starbucks, honestly, is we have a little section down here about like maybe it got erased, but brand examples. I've met some people at Starbucks who weren't the happiest, but almost every time, at least at our local Starbucks, I go in, they seem like they genuinely enjoy working there, assuming it's not 5 a.m. But if I go in, at a normal time, and maybe you can, vouch for this, they know me. Yeah, they know my name. They're happy. Yeah, which maybe says a bit more about how much we spend at Starbucks, but they know my drink, and I don't go every day. But it didn't take them many days to learn. And I feel like those people probably are, I don't think Starbucks is necessarily a career, but maybe for some people it is. I'm not trying to say bad on people who work at Starbucks for their career, but I feel like a lot of those people probably are going to pick working at Starbucks over, some other opportunities, unless it's the next step in their life. Right. Right. So. Yeah.
And Starbucks has had stuff in the press and everything, and
who knows?
Yeah,
there was that whole thing. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, so it's hard to say in terms of that stuff, but yeah, I agree too. For the most part, when I go in, like the experience I have with it, they seem happy, and I'm sure some people aren't, but yeah, I'm sure people are putting it on. But like it overall, again, they are not. They're being, we'll say, quote unquote, a brand ambassador, where they're happy enough to put a smile on their face and hand me my drink and say thanks, and give me whatever it is, and not be like, here's your drink. Yeah. So they're enough of a brand ambassador there to smile, versus not like the UPS guy. Obviously if someone filmed that, I don't know if it's UPS or FedEx or what it was, but obviously someone filmed him. So it's not like he was hiding or it was out there. I'm sure he wasn't trying to be filmed, but I'm sure he also wasn't trying to throw a package and not let anyone see him.
Correct. And the place that you work, one of your side jobs is you work for the mouse. And something that, at least in the theme parks, I'm not necessarily talking about all of the associated companies, but at least in the theme parks, people... it's almost famous, is like the Disney smile, right? And the Disney persona of you show up and you're thrilled.
Yeah, you're so happy.
But that I think is like one of the prime examples, and maybe having worked there, not in customer service, but how deeply does that pervade down into like the people actually working there? Do they actually try to pick people, who are more happy? And kind of tying into the brand ambassador thing, like, do you feel that a lot of the people that work there do want to be there?
Yeah, I think so. At least the people I interact with and stuff. And I talk to a lot of different people, since I don't work in like one specific department. I mean, I do, but I don't so I go and talk to tons of people who are there and stuff. And, for the most part, they enjoy their job and they like what they do. And there's always the drama and the corporate whatever that always comes up. But like, for the most part, it seems like people really enjoy it. And I know so many people, like not that I met there, but that work there, just because that seems to be something that like it feels like a step in a direction that can lead them somewhere to something. And you know, everyone too, like I'm in the broadcast department, so I'm not dealing with guests and whatever, but every single person that works there goes through the same training for the first 2 days. It's like you learn the Disney culture, no matter where you're going to be placed in the parks or in Burbank or whatever you're doing. Like you learn what Disney, the culture, all that is, and then you can go to your actually specialized training for whatever you're doing. But yeah, no, for the most part, I'd say people seem to be happy to work there. But of course, you're going to find those people that aren't. And like you're, you know, anyone working in a customer facing thing where you're dealing with people, whether it's food, whether it's retail, like you have to deal with a lot of people, which I'm sure is incredibly annoying. Where we are fortunate enough to deal with someone over an email, which gives us a little bit of flexibility in terms of judging how they're yelling at us, we could say. And it gives us time as well to determine what the right answer to this problem
because we don't need to respond immediately.
Exactly. So I don't know. There's that balance.
But there
too.
is also the cost of that is if a customer walks up in person and starts yelling at me, I know that they're hostile and I can react accordingly. Sometimes over email,
it's hard to read.
I mean, we talked about this on the customer service episode. There was the one customer who had the discolored bricks. The first email was, I mean, it wasn't nasty. It wasn't like they swore or anything, but Evan and I both read it as definitely on the more aggressive side. And they turned out to be like the nicest lady ever.
Right.
You know, and they sent everything back and everything was individually wrapped and like so nice and polite. And so that is one cost of having an online brand is it has a lot of ambiguity. And one more company that I want to bring up as an example, at least as of like 5 years ago before the CEO retired, there's been some changes recently. But one of the companies that I really admired, I guess, growing up, because my family flew with them all the time, was Southwest. And I wrote like some papers in like college and high school on Southwest too. It's the customer service company, right? And the CEO said that like he values two things in this order. Like it was like the quality of life of his employees and the smile on a customer's face like after they get off the plane, in that order. And he had memorized every single employee's first and last name and one fact about them who worked for the company. And that was like his thing that he was like known for, was memorizing every company or every employee. And that became one of the main reasons as to why Southwest was so successful. Is they were a budget airline who was not a pain to fly with, right? I mean, they have other things that they did that were very unique, the hubs and spokes thing, and the free seat or the mixed seating thing with the boarding groups. But one of the main things that a lot of like business manuals and stuff credit them with success is the insane degree of customer service that they were, I mean, basically willing to bend over backwards for a customer. Obviously, I'm sure people watching this have had negative experiences, and I have as well. But one of the major things versus Delta or Spirit or et cetera is that if the customer wanted it, the customer gets it. And so when building your brand, I think it's very vital to remember that there's really only one person who is going to be spreading your brand message at the end of the day. And that is going to be the customer. Because if two people are sitting on a couch watching an ad of yours and one of them says, oh, that's utter, I almost said a bad word there, but
garbage.
Yeah, that's utter garbage. These people are lying through their teeth. They screwed me over on all of these things. I bet you that second person is probably not going to make a purchase. So
yeah, that's true.
Your brand really does revolve a lot around your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, You kind of mentioned that the CEO is no longer with Southwest, which makes it sound like a few of those principles probably potentially changed.
I feel like I'm pretty sure he died, but I want to double check that real quick.
Yeah, but that's another thing too with changing times and stuff. Your brand update?
He died in 2019 at the age of 87. The first thing is Herb Keller, the eccentric founder of Southwest Airlines, who revolutionized low-cost air travel, died at 87. Yeah.
Sad. Sounds like he lived a good life, though. The last thing we'll kind of touch on here a little bit is kind of, changing times. And, if you picked a brand in the 90s and you are still the same brand you were in the 90s, you're probably not around today. There's a lot of changes that are constantly happening in the world and stuff, so your brand does need to be able to evolve. And we don't have a whole lot to talk on this necessarily because we haven't really evolved much.
We changed our logo.
We did change our logo, and that's in here as well.
We've switched to podcasts. We hadn't even thought of that. We have
Maybe.
rebranded the YouTube.
That's true, and that's a wishy-washy topic in terms of the YouTube. But your brand does need to evolve. Within reason. You don't want to every single year rebrand completely. That would be way too hard for customers to follow along with and stuff. But keep in mind that your brand is forever, should be evolving with the times and stuff. The world is constantly changing. I mentioned that, but whether it's politics or just what is now politically correct versus what isn't, versus all of those different things. You don't want to be left behind in the dust because you're not adapting to what's around you. You had mentioned if we were marketing, we were going to do a kind of vertical portrait mode, whatever ad. If you did that 10 years ago, people would think you're insane. But if you're aiming for that market and audience now, you have to be doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's a way you should adapt and stuff. So, you don't need to rebrand every year. Don't rebrand every year. But you may sometimes want to change your logo. Like Jamba Juice, this is for some reason I remember this one. This was still years ago, but Jamba Juice changed their name to Jamba because they wanted to offer other things or whatever it was, and it made it simpler. And they changed their logo. Subway right now, I think, is doing a big rebrand where they're remodeling all the stores and stuff. So companies rebrand.
Oh, McDonald's, you want to talk about a rebrand?
Yeah.
I mean, McDonald's, it still is not, the first thing when you think of McDonald's is not healthy food. It's cheap food, but McDonald's used to get a lot of bad stuff talked about them. Mm-hmm. It was the butt of every joke, and it still kind of is. But if you used to walk into McDonald's, it was dirty. It wasn't. It looked like it was out of the '60s, but not like a good diner. It just looked like, this is not necessarily real, but it kind of had to feel like the ceiling should be covered in smoke. But now almost every McDonald's looks like this modern kind of sleek
that's
thing.
True.
They added a lot of more, I guess, quote, healthy items to their meals, and some of them are a bit more healthy, but they really tried to push a very strong
and that's because they had to. If they didn't, I think they wouldn't be where they are right now. If in the past 15 years, 20 years, or however long it's been now, they wouldn't be where they are if they stuck exactly how they were. So you have to occasionally change and stuff. You want to make sure you revisit your mission statement and stuff and kind of what your brand values are, and make sure that your brand that you're changing either sticks to that or that you're willing to change the mission slightly or whatever and stuff like that. But occasionally look at your brand, do a little little audit or something.
Look at what your competitors are doing too.
Yeah, no, totally.
And don't necessarily just copy them. Also look at it critically and be like, what could I do that's different? I'll bring up Wendy's again as an example. Everyone does this a little bit more, but Wendy's is kind of the quintessential sassy, online thing. And not every, before Wendy's did it, that wasn't that wasn't a thing. The corporations did not retweet memes, right? And that is now honestly a pretty common thing. A lot of large corporations retweet memes, and sometimes even a little bit edgy, not edgy politically, but a little bit sassy to the customer even,
Right, because people love that, and they see that, and they realize it was associated with whatever brand, and now that pops in their head. The more marketing and stuff you can, the more you can push your brand into someone's face, within reason, of course, the more they're going to remember you. And obviously a nationwide brand of fast food chains and stuff. Those are generally hard to forget. But when you're a small business, if you somehow have the ability to push your stuff to them, it's great. And obviously, I would assume the majority of our little business card things that go in every package get tossed. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee there are some people out there that have those.
Are those fully recyclable?
Yeah, they're just paper.
I mean, they're shiny.
Yeah, but they're not coated. It's just like we can look into that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they are, though. But yeah, they're, someone out there, I'm sure more than someone, actually. I'm sure people have those. And that's a little thing that costs us. We just did this. I don't think it's 4 cents, but I'm going to say 4 cents. You don't need to look it up, or sure, you can look it up. That costs us a little amount for that card. But if that sits on someone's desk, or it sits in their drawer or something, and they see it later on and they remember us,
it costs 41 cents per card.
No, that's not right.
Sorry. No. 4.1 cents per card.
Okay, so it is 4 cents per card. Okay.
I was missing a decimal.
So that 4 cent, they might see that, and later on that means they want to come back. I think that's worth 4 cents. But again, that's quote unquote shoving the brand in their face by giving them things that they may want to keep as a little souvenir type thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously the box is going to get tossed. The bags, maybe they reuse the bags, but we're not going to get custom bags. But that little card, it isn't big. Someone has that. So things like that to think about. I think, for the most part, in terms of what we were going for here, again, I'll remind you, for the most part, this was talking about the brand of your company, not the brand of a product. So again, some of this applies to a product, but generally, your company has a political type side or views and stuff versus a product having that.
Yeah, and I guess we should kind of specify political here, because we've used that word in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
Throughout this. I'm not, at least we're not just referring to right, left, or whatever, dichotomy you want to use, authoritative versus libertarian, whatever.
Yeah.
But we're also referring to just your influence on society, right? Not to give a lesson here, but polis, which is where politics comes from, just means like the city or the people of the city. And so your political views also have to do with just how you exist in the society that your company is in. And so your political beliefs might go all the way to how you supply things and the degree down the supply chain that you're double checking that they're following ethical practices, right? Or whether you are going to not break the law, but creatively interpret and get in trouble for that later. Yeah,
I mean, even if the fact that we use all recyclable stuff.
Exactly. That would be political, even though
we'll look into the business cards, but I'm pretty sure they're recyclable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for the most part that's it in terms of what we have for branding. So
strong middle weekend.
Yeah, for sure. We really went crazy when it came to that brand experience concept. So as always, thank you for listening. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, or if you're watching this on YouTube, and then if you are watching this on YouTube, you can listen to it wherever. Or if you're listening to this and you want to get involved in a conversation, and maybe let us know what you think or what you like or you think is unique about your brand and your company or store or whatever it might be, let us know in the comment section below the video. I think
look forward to next episode.
Yeah, look forward to next episode. It should be pretty fun. It'll be a little special. And then of course, if you have any suggestions, as always, we love hearing what you guys might want to hear out of these episodes when we do a little bit of research and stuff into kind of a topic or something. So thanks for listening to this episode of the BrickSide Chat podcast, and we will see you in the next one.
Goodbye.